Let's talk about bonnet and hat veils from 1800 to 1900. Hi everyone, my name is Caitlin. I'm a living historian who educates other living historians by teaching old-fashioned sewing skills and copying original garments. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. I started doing, well, I guess I did a kind of a one-off 100 years of garters video last fall, and I enjoyed it, and I think y'all enjoyed it as well, even though it maybe not been the most thorough thing in the world because of time restraints. And I think there's a lot of nuance that is missed when you do 100 years of things versus like 20 years of something. However, I think it's a really good idea to kind of see how things fall in and out of fashion. And so I thought, well, maybe we'll do that a couple times a year with accessories. And I thought, well, you know what? Something I really know somewhat about is bonnet veils. I taught a class at a conference one year about dating bonnet veils. I did it from, I think, 1800 to 1870 though. So I was like, let's go ahead and just add 30 years to that. Don't do a whole lot in the 1880s and the 1890s, but it wouldn't hurt me to learn. And then I can just do 100 years of veils. Veils are something I very much enjoy. I love veils. They are my favorite accessory. I just adore veils. I collect antique ones. I have probably about a dozen-ish. I haven't counted in a while. My earliest ones are about 1820 to 1830. My latest ones are about 1870. But I absolutely love veils. I will wear a veil, even in modern day, any chance that I get. It's gotten to the point where I've started veiling at church because I actually really like veils, and I have a bunch of them, so I might as well use them. I have a bunch of them, I might as well use them, and it's a good traditional thing to do. I don't wear any of my historic bonnets without a veil attached. I have very few hat veils, but eventually that's going to be remedied as well. So I figured since I had the PowerPoint mostly put together from that conference several years ago, I might as well go ahead and go through the PowerPoint again with you. I think we're going to go through the PowerPoint. I'll go through some of my originals. We'll just pull out the box and just look at them. All right, fashionable veils, 1800 to 1900. All right, so today we're going to learn how to date 19th century veils. We're going to discuss when veils are worn in each time period. We're going to discuss how veils are worn and used within each time period, and learn how to reproduce veils. So when you think veil, what first comes to mind? I think most of us probably think wedding veil because that's something that we use frequently even today. A lot of people think that veils are for mourning and only for mourning, which kind of leads into the next question. What are some preconceived notions we have about veils and wearing veils? I think a lot of people think of them as anti-woman, anti-feminist, something that men force upon women, particularly with the mourning department. And what do you think comes to the public's mind when you think about wearing veils in the 19th century? As living historians, if they see someone in a veil, what are they going to think? I think most of the time, particularly if it's going to be a black veil, which most veils in the 19th century were black, it's going to be, oh, you're in mourning, whether or not that was an actual mourning veil or not, because we today are told, well, black meant mourning, and none of the nuance is there. The nuance of black was a fashion color, and it doesn't just mean mourning, and also there are other colors that are mourning colors in certain situations other than black. We have lost the nuance, and so a lot of public will see you in a veil and assume you're in mourning. So veil commonalities throughout this entire time period. We're looking at things like lace, mousseline, or gauze like cotton, silk, or wool fabrics. Yes, there are veils in wools. Mostly sheer fabrics because you want to be able to see through them. That's kind of an important thing if you are walking around or being outside or in a carriage. You do still need to see. And so sheer fabrics are going to be what we look for with this. Black is going to be always appropriate. It's a very good veil color. Other colors will come in and out of fashion, as we will see, but black is always going to remain a constant. Oftentimes veils are going to be attached with a narrow, like 1/4 inch, 1/8 inch, 1/2 inch ribbon through a channel at the top of the veil, and it's going to be pinned into the hat or bonnet. And if you're wearing them with a bonnet, they're going to be attached to the base of the bonnet brim. So where the brim meets the crown on either a hat or a bonnet is typically where we are going to see that veil attached. And again, they are usually secured with pins. These are going to be straight pins, just regular old dressmaker's pins work really well for this. There were specific veil pins for this that are very fine and thin. I have found the little entomology pins, so the ones that people use to display dead insects, those make really good approximations for actual historic veil pins. And then veils are used for a variety of purpose. They are used for shade. They are used to keep dust out of the face. They are used for warmth, and they are occasionally used to conceal the face from unwanted attention. So let's look at 1800 through 1815. We have these ladies both wearing veils. So veils in this time period are very long, like below the natural waist and below the hip level even, almost to the knee, not quite. Or they are very short demi-voiles that go to the chin or to the neck, or even sometimes shoulder length. So you have two options for veils in this time period. White is going to be a very popular color in this time period, and with black being the next most popular color. The reason that we like black, so if the primary purpose for wearing a veil is to shade the face, they're like the sunglasses of the 19th century. Black is going to deflect the sun away from your face a whole lot more than a lighter color would, which is why black is so popular and remains popular throughout the whole of the 19th century. You also do see purple and green mentioned frequently, less common than white or black, but you will see some purple and green veils mentioned. Green is another color that stays popular throughout most of the 19th century. There are eras where it is more popular than not, but green does seem, again, like the black, to work really well as a veil. Lace veils are very common, but gauze and muslin veils are also mentioned. Muslin would not be the muslin we discussed today. The muslin we talk about today is very low quality. Yes, it is somewhat semi-sheer now, but the fibers are too close together. Muslin back in the period was almost like a cotton organdy in a way. So extremely sheer, very fine. So here are some more. This is 1801, 1803, and 1810. We see the purple one at the end. Again, very long, not quite to the knee, but nearly to the knee. In the earlier ones, what you're seeing is net with a very long lace panel attached, which is actually very easy to reproduce. You can get lace panels that are antique about that width and about that length to be able to attach to net, for instance. Here are some more. This is 1810 with the brown, which is another popular color. 14 with the solid lace. And then 1811, we just have what could be lace or muslin veils as well. We have 1804 to 1806. That's a muslin one, so that's more of a fabric one with embroidery around it, not necessarily the lace ones. And then we have two demi-voiles, 1803 and 1807. You can see how much shorter they are, but those are solid lace. In written sources, we're going to go over this real quick. So the sun shines so brightly you had better wear your veil. Again, that's showing that we are using that veil for shade. And one of them, a little bit more negative one, is I've been muffled up so much I do detest veils. I like to have a whole world full of air to breathe in. Which, yes, sometimes, especially with the wool or the silk veils, you do feel a little stuffy. Personally, I have a less of a problem with that when I wear lace veils as opposed to like a muslin or a fabric veil or a gauze veil. Those tend to be a little bit, I have a harder time breathing in those, but I also get very claustrophobic with things near my face, so that could just be a me issue. And here's one for remaining concealed. I'm so glad you advised me to wear a veil. I met Mr. Fitzgerald in this very street. I don't think he saw me for my veil was close. That just means that it was falling over her face. And then there's one particular source that mentioned veils quite a lot. So talk about concealing her face, or having her veiled, or this lady was having her veil down, but to talk to somebody, she threw up her veil. And the last one is merely just using a veil to try to conceal herself, but it didn't work. Her veil fell down, leaving her feeling exposed. You'll see this fairly often as veils being used. If you do not wish to speak to someone, you can lower your veil, and it's like a subtle hint of, you know what, I really don't want to talk to you right now. Pretend I'm not here because you can't see my face. So this is one of my veils that I recently purchased. It is probably from the 1820s. The veils get a little bit shorter, so you'll see the very, very long veils, again, almost knee length in the very earliest of the 19th century. And as we go through the eras, we're going to see them getting shorter and shorter and shorter. So in this time period, 1815 to 1829, we're going to see veils getting shorter. They're about a yard long or a little longer. They still go past the hips, as you can see in the original. They are going to be square-ish or still vertically rectangular. So we're seeing veils about 30 to 45 inches in width. And then they're either going to be that square or they're going to be a little bit longer. White is still very popular in this time period, but you do see black gaining popularity. So you're going to see black more often than you did 15 years prior. Green is also going to show up fairly frequently, and brown is starting to appear more often as well. And then we still have the lace and the tulle veils being the most common. Most of these veils are very hard to reproduce because they are woven on purpose. So this is not a bit of lace attached to some net. It is all one piece. It is all woven on purpose, which makes it very hard to replicate today. So we have some pictures of mostly white veils. You can see they are getting shorter. They are around hip length on a lot of these ladies. You can also see where they are attaching them to their bonnets, right where that crown meets that brim. And we also see how they're being worn. Most of the time in this time period, we're going to notice that the veils are being worn off to the side, like pushed to one side or the other, as opposed to that middle one, which you do see her throwing it entirely back. And you can do that, but most of the time, you're going to want to put them off to one side. And when you have a very wide brimmed bonnet, from personal experience, I can tell you it is much easier to throw it off to one side than it is to throw it all the way back, because if you have short arms like I do, sometimes they don't reach all the way from the back of your wide brimmed bonnet, and it just ends up looking a mess back there because you can't just throw it off entirely. Here are some more from the 1820s and then one from the 1815. So we see one that's fabric veil, and it has what looks like a fringe at the end. You can see exactly where that veil is attached. You see one that's more laid on top of her head with the whole lace. And then the black one is again thrown off to one side, just like the 1820s one. Here are some originals and more. So we have a green one off to the side. That one is Metropolitan Museum of Art. And then there's Museum of Fine Arts as well. Again, you can see that they are woven on purpose. You don't see any seams, and that is because they are woven on purpose, which makes it very hard to reproduce. Some written sources, we have veil of black silk, veil of lace covering her fair features. It is not an uncommon thing to see in literature that to be able to speak to someone, you throw aside your veil. So if your veil was covering your face, you would throw it to the side to be able to speak to that person where they can actually see your face. That was considered polite. It's not to say you can't speak to someone if you have a veil on covering your face, like we see in that 1825 source where she's replying yes, but she's not having a full conversation. Generally, if you're going to have any type of conversation or ask a question, you're going to want to pull aside that veil. And again, that's just polite. So hints to wearing these. The veils are going to be gathered on a very narrow ribbon and attached to the base of the bonnet or pinned to the hair / headdress with invisible pins. Again, those entomology pins are going to be really good for this. To cast off a veil, you're going to most often throw it to one side. I see it being thrown off to the left side being way more common than throwing off to the right side, but you can do either. I have a sneaky suspicion that it is dependent on whether you are right or left-handed. So most people are going to be right-handed, so you take your dominant hand and throw it off to the other side, which makes sense why we see it going to the left side more often, because you are using that right hand, like that lady in the fashion plate, and just tossing it over the brim. So again, generally if you're going to converse with a person or talk to them, you're going to cast aside your veil so they can properly see your face. That is just polite. To conceal yourself either from unwanted gaze, or if you want to avoid conversing with someone, you can draw your veil over your face. So let's talk about reproducing veils from this time period. You're going to want about 45-inch wide material. You can do 36 inches, but 45 gives you a really nice wide veil. Silk gauze is good. You can use fine cotton or lace bobbinet. This is not going to be the netting you buy at like Hobby Lobby or craft stores. That is going to be a synthetic, and it's not going to lay like a natural fiber net would. Pointe Spirit, which I'm probably mispronouncing because it's French and I don't speak French, is a netted fabric that has woven in dots in it. I will show you an example in a little bit, but those are all excellent choices for veiling in this time period. The more solid veils, like the gauze or the very fine muslin, can be decorated with the same color ribbon, about 1 inch wide. And the reason to put ribbon or lace or something at the end of your veil is you do need your veil to have some sort of weight to it, so it doesn't climb up your dress and just end up in a pool around your face. That is quite frustrating. I've had that experience. So you put something at the end to kind of weigh it down. That way it doesn't just ride up on you. Again, net veils are going to be trimmed with some sort of lace design on that is of the same color. And then all veils will use that very narrow silk ribbon to fit it to the bonnet. Thin silk ribbon can be found, people use it for silk ribbon embroidery, and those are going to be good fits for this as well. 1830 to 1845, we are continually seeing veils get shorter. They are now about 20 to 36 inches long, more rectangular at this point, the opposite direction. So they are more wider horizontally than they are vertically, as we saw earlier in the century. And they're going to keep that width for a while until about 1843, when they do start getting a little bit narrower. So again, more of that 36 inches wide as opposed to the 45. Green shows up very frequently in this time period. Brown is also showing up quite a bit. White is still probably the most popular color, but its very close second would be black. And then lace or tulle veils are also going to be, again, extremely common. So here are some. Notice that we are starting to see the difference of the veils being tossed back all the way into the back of the head, but they're not thrown all the way back as they were in the early 19th century. What they are doing instead is just kind of hanging out, not going past the crown of the head, but instead just being tossed back just over the brim to kind of fall over slightly. That is a very quintessential thing of this particular time period. You'll see more often than throwing it to one side or throwing it all the way back. And that's because the hats and the bonnets are so wide in this time period. It's very difficult to throw it off to one side, and you don't have to deal with the issue of trying to throw it all the way back over your crown. Here's some 1840s images. We're still seeing tossed back being more normal, and as the bonnets get a little bit smaller, it's a little bit easier to toss them back. So here's some originals. That is one of mine from this time period, the black one. And then there's a white one. You can see where it is drawn up with that ribbon. Quite often you're not going to see, very few of my originals have their ribbon still attached. Some of them do, and we'll look at those in a little bit. I do want to show you how that is all attached. Here's some more originals. Here is a net or a gauze veil. See how many rows of ribbon? Again, that is just adding a little bit of weight. Silk ribbon is not heavy. It does not feel like a modern satin or grosgrain ribbon. Those are going to be far too heavy for this. You still want the veil to flutter in the wind. You still want it to have that very light, airy quality to it, but you want it to have it a little bit of weight, again, so it doesn't ride up on your dress. And so these are two green veils. You can see the several rows of ribbon. I will tell you from experience that sewing on ribbon on veils is not very much fun. Gauze is hard to sew on. It just likes to be very slinky. So some written sources mentions veils with traveling dresses. Obviously you want a veil for traveling. The dust that gets kicked up on those stagecoaches and those wagons, you definitely want a veil. And if you're traveling in any sort of community situation like a stagecoach, the veil comes in handy if you have someone who's sitting next to you who is chatty and just exasperating. Put your veil over your face. Generally they will get the hint at that point. Written sources are also very good for telling you how much veils are going to cost. It is very important to make sure you know exactly where this book was published, so you know the conversion rate. And then a mention of starting to cry, and she drops her veil over her face so that no one can tell she is crying. Veils can be a great way if you're showing emotion that you don't necessarily need or want to be showing. You can always throw your veil over and no one can know what you're thinking. This is a lady in London trying on shoes. We see her friend has a veil. The lady trying on shoes may have a veil. I can't tell what's going on around her face. She may just have it thrown entirely back. It's a white veil if she's wearing one. The other one has a black veil. So again, we're starting to cast off the veil at the back of the bonnet. Veils can be thrown all the way down the back of the bonnet or just laid across the crown/brim, which is most common, particularly if you have a very fashionable large bonnet. It's easier to do the second option than throwing it all the way back. Veils are attached where the crown hits the brim as per usual. Then hints to reproducing. So the Workwoman's Guide, which was first published in 1838 and then republished a couple times in the 1840s, has excellent directions for ordinary veils, mourning veils, demi veils, and riding veils, and tells you exactly how to make them. Generally, they're going to be longer towards 1830 and shorter as you move up through the century. The one thing I don't like about the Workwoman's Guide is it doesn't change. So you see the fashions are very much 1830, well, let's say 1828 to about 1836 is where those fashions really sit. Even though the book was published later, all those plates had to be done and all the books had to be written prior to being published, and it's just a slightly older style. The veils should be mostly good. You might want to make them a little bit shorter, especially as you go up through the 1840s. And it does tell you what types of materials to use, so like tulle, made on purpose of net, gauze, or crepe, and it tells you how long and wide to make them. The Workman's Guide does use nails, which is 2.25 inches, and it does tell you a crepe or a gauze veil, simply hemmed all around, the hem being deeper at the bottom to give it a little bit more weight, and a ribbon is running at the top. So now let's get into 1846 to 1855. Veils are going to get shorter and narrower. Veils are standardly shorter than they are wide, so they're going to be rectangular more towards the width than the height. Black is going to be by far the most popular color that we are seeing. White very much goes by the wayside. You don't see it often very much except for brides. Blue and green are very popular this time period. Brown, we start seeing references to gray or silver, and sometimes with purple as well. Lace and tulle veils are still very common, but this is the time frame where you see more solid veils, so like the gauze or the muslin, than you do in any other time period. So here are some veils. We had the lady, this is quite a famous photo, I think, online. So apparently the mother was covered. She wasn't meant to be seen, but you wanted to see. I believe that's her son, given the fact that he does not have a center part hair. That would mostly be a boy, even though he's in a very frilly dress. The mother just has some sort of solid veil. The one in the middle has a lace veil, just kind of thrown back, and the other one has another solid veil. More solid veils. The one with the blue is a traveler, and the ones on the bottom beneath her look like they are lace veils. So this is showing you the shape, so we can very much see the rectangular shape of these being much more wide than they are tall. Here are some more. One is gathered up a little bit. But again, these are made on purpose, so there's not a seam where you're attaching the bottom or the side lace. That is all woven in one piece, which makes it difficult to reproduce those properly. Written sources, so even in Godey's in 1851, you see veils of all different colors: purple, blue, silver, green, blue, black. So lots of different options for colors. Now let's talk 1856 to 1885. So veils are now going to be mostly shaped, except for hat veils, which are rectangular. Black is still the most common, and veils come in basically any color you can want. I even saw red mentioned once, which is the first time I've heard of a red veil. The shapes are changing, and you see a lot of variety. You can see how short these veils are now. They do range from about chin length to about shoulder length is going to be the most common. And they are, again, still mostly made on purpose with this lace, or sometimes with silk gauze trimmed with ribbon. So several options. These are going to be more solid ones. You can see the ribbon going around the hem. Again, that's just a way to hem it. It's a really great way to hem it easily, and again, it adds a little bit of weight. So you see that in the brown veil, and then also the middle one with that silver veil. The black one is likely lace, is what it looks like to me. And here are some more. So we have the lady on the left with a net veil, and then the other two ladies have their gauze veils, it looks like. Older lady in the middle there looks like she has 2 rows of ribbon instead of just one. And here's some originals from the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Again, they are getting to be more shaped. Mostly the half moon demi-vols I see to be mostly dated to the 1850s and early 1860s. It's not until you get a little bit later, like mid 1860s and later, that you start seeing the other shapes. They start being a little bit creative with their veil shapes then. Here's a pink one and a purple one and a blue one. That blue one I believe is wool, and it is knitted. You do see knitted veils occasionally. You'll see them even into the 1840s as well, mentioned in like knitting or netting books on how to make veils. So here's some hat veils. 2 types of hat veils, again, mostly rectangular. Here's one that has it going just down the back. That's not necessarily one that's going to be used for shade. That is strictly for looks. The one in the middle shows a demi-vol for a hat. It's literally just to shade the eyes. It is, 5 or 6 inches, depending on how wide your hat brim is. Just coming down from the hat brim about 2 or 3 inches. So it kind of depends on, again, how wide your hat brim is, how wide that lace needs to be. And it goes from about the back of your ear all the way across to the other back of your ear. And again, that is just for sunshade. And that one on the back end is either an 1840s and 1850s bonnet veil, or it could be an 1860s hat veil. So hints to wearing. So veils are going to be pinned at the base of the crown. About where your ear is about where you're going to pin your veil. Veils are thrown back in what I affectionately refer to as a graceful disarray, meaning they can be a hot mess and look like a bird's nest back there. It's just part of the aesthetic. And then the same social rules apply as to previous decades. So you can wear them for all sorts of reasons, like not wanting to talk to somebody, or for sunshade, or anything like that is appropriate to wear a veil. So here are some originals. We have a very quintessential typical veil of this time period on the left. The middle one dates a little bit past the American Civil War. Those are, the beads and the flowers are straw, actually. I tried to reproduce this with little metal beads. The veil ended up being so heavy. I would love to be able to do straw work like this. I did watch a class with Elizabeth, I forget her last name. I think it started with an E. I grew up doing bees. I don't particularly care to do bees because I don't like getting stung, so that's Rhett's job now. But I do love the little straw work, but straw again is going to be super light. This is not something you can reproduce properly with beads or anything like that. Now this one is interesting because you can see where the net ends and then this lace was applied over top. So you see this occasionally, which is helpful for us because it means that what we're going to do to reproduce veils is technically correct, but you're not seeing a seam so much. So you're going to want something that has two finished ends, not one that has an edge to be sewn in. That way it looks like it's still woven on purpose, and you just kind of stitch along that top edge. And then here's a Korean one, I believe in the Netherlands, and it has that beautiful little cross hatch design that you'll see on some veils with that ribbon. Again, I personally prefer not sewing in ribbon to veils. It is not a favorite chore of mine, but when you're doing a solid veil like that, it's the easiest thing. The gauze veils are going to be a lot cheaper than the net ones. Cotton or silk bobbinet is very, very expensive, whereas silk gauze, you can get a yard of that for less than $10. You can get some silk ribbon again for about $20 and have enough for dozens and dozens and dozens of veils. So in actuality, you can get a very cheap veil that way, and I'll show you a resource later on. So 1885 to 1900s, the veils are going to be mostly shaped, even the hat veils. White appears to be making a comeback in this time period. So something you see in the earlier in the century, you're going to start seeing again. These shapes are changing. You see a lot of variety. A lot of them are worn very close to the face, as in this image, where it's almost like a second skin being worn over, and that would irritate me very much. Doesn't seem to be bothering them, but I'm just saying I don't know if I would be able to do that. They are worn again very tight across the face. And the most common continue to be the lace that's made on purpose, or even the modern, what we call vintage veiling, the hat veiling. That type of thing is being seen in this time period as well, particularly in the 1890s, not necessarily the 1880s. So here we see some images. These ones, again, they are pinned into the base of that hat, and they kind of go down and are very worn tight against the neck area, kind of creating this conical shape from the top of the hat down to the base of the neck. Here's some more. That one on the right is very much the modern netting, or the vintage netting, what we would call vintage hat veiling. That's going to be what that looks like. And this one is just worn very loosely. It may be pinned on the sides, but it's definitely not gathered in like we've seen before. Same with the other one. They're worn a little bit more loosely on the hat area than they are anywhere else, and they're worn again very tight underneath the chin. So sort of opposite of what we saw even 50 years ago. So hints to wearing: veils are worn at least ear to ear, if not further back. Veils can end below the chin, or they taper into the collar into a circular shape. And then the wide and narrow brimmed hats can be worn veils. It doesn't really matter what your hat shape is, you can wear a veil. Resources: the silk gauze at Dharma Trading. They sell them in black, or you can buy them in white. Dharma is a dyeing resource, and so they have all sorts of synthetic and natural dyes that you can use to dye the white any color you want that's appropriate for your time period. Originals by Kay sells that. Silk Bobbinet Original by Kay sells that. These are all links from a long time ago. Cotton Bobbinet. Let me see if they still go. Oh, they don't. See, that is what Pointed to Spirit is. And she has caps made of it. There's a Reproduction bonnet veil. Her veils are gorgeous, very beautifully done. Maybe she doesn't sell fabric anymore. That's unfortunate. It very well could be that I'm not using the right search terms. Let's try netting. Okay, here. Fine cotton net. Here we are. So there's white. Oh, that's out of stock, unfortunately. You have the red option. There is some in black right here. There's a lady on Etsy, Mary Not Martha, I believe, who sells the cotton bobbinet. I don't know if she sells the Pointed Spirit. Let's try it. Yes, she does. The dotted silk net. You have to look at the lace in it. Okay, she doesn't specify if it's silk or cotton. We're not going to use that. Yeah, okay. I wouldn't go for her for the Pointed Spirit, but let's see. I do silk net. But she used to sell silk net. Yes. Silk tulle. And it's very expensive. That is, about $100 for a yard. That's about normal. Let's see, for cotton, it's not usually, oops, I spelled cotton net wrong. It's not usually that much less expensive about $71. And that's not including shipping or any tariffs or anything. Yeah, it's expensive. Let's see. I believe Sarah has in the past. Well, I thought she was on Etsy. See, she does have an Etsy shop. Why did you not pull up? Yes, here's that netting. Oh, that's the polyester stuff. Polyester stuff I don't think lays like the cotton stuff. It is less expensive. There's some French bobbinet right here. That would be good. Who else would sell the... Oh, I bet I know. I bet I know. Where I usually get my heirloom stuff. She should sell it in black and white. Yes! And ivory. Awesome. Yes, this is going to be the good cotton stuff that you want. It is, again, extremely expensive. Actually, that's way more expensive than it used to be. It used to be only about $100 a yard. If you're doing 1860s, the good news is with a yard, you can get at least 4 veils. So if you go in with this with a friend and you each, you can divide that price by 4, which makes it a little bit more reasonable. But the cotton stuff lays totally different than the polyester stuff. I mean, I would trust Sarah, and so she sells the polyester stuff. Maybe she found some nicer quality polyester stuff. The only thing with the polyester that I would also be concerned with, it's going to be really hot against the face. Like really hot against the face. And her stuff does look like it lays better than the other stuff that I've seen. But again, wearing that against your face is going to be ridiculously hot net. Now I do know there was, I think it was Ginger, what's her last name? It's been a long time. She took regular net and she embroidered dots on her sewing machine. And that's how she got the look for cheaper. Again, this is silk veiling or silk net. So it looks like Kay still sells regular bobbinet. She doesn't sell the Point d'Esprit. There is a place on Etsy, I wonder if it still works. But she copied in the 1830s embroidery pattern, and that's now a machine embroidery pattern. I think she has it for hand and machine embroidery. So we saw that hat or that bonnet earlier, and so you can do that on machine. I don't know if purple would be the right color for that time period. Certainly not on a white net. Again, the embroidery should be matching the color of the veil. But again, it's easier to see, and I understand why she did that. But yeah, so that is an option if you have a machine. And if you have an embroidery machine, I would consider that to be an option to make it look like there's it's woven on purpose or netted on purpose look to it. A silk ribbon, yeah, Timely Tresses is going to sell that, as does Dharma Trading, and they sell different kinds of silk ribbon. Don't do the bias cuts. You don't want that. You want woven silk ribbon, and you can get it in 1/8 inch wide all the way up to 1 inch wide, and it differing amounts of 25 meters or up to 50 meters, even 10 meters, and then there's the price. So it's not terribly expensive, and it does only come in white though, so you would have to dye it. But again, they have the dyes. And if you want it for a black veil, I would use their synthetic dyes. I wouldn't use a natural dye to try to get black. It can be hard to get black on natural. So, yeah, those are great tools, great places to look for reproduction stuff. And again, Originals by Kay did sell the reproduction veils. I don't know who else sells the actual veils that are already reproduced, but Originals by Kay, we did see that. Ooh, she has one on sale that's 1820s, 1830s. Anyone who does 1820s, 1830s. This one's coming, oops. This video is coming out fairly soon, like in 3 days. So go to her. Yeah, that's for an original. That's a good price. Oops. Look at it. Oh, it's beautiful. Well, I'm going to save that for somebody else. Whoever does 18, I have plenty of veils from that time period. I don't need any more. Try not to be a hoarder, and I know other people need them. I probably wouldn't wear it, but it'd be great for display. It'd be great to learn, or yeah, and that's a really good price. It's a really pretty one too. Yeah, it's another really early one, probably 1820s to 1830s. Could be a little earlier. Could almost be Regency, but that is gorgeous as well. Okay, but yeah, here's a good reproduction veil for mid-19th century, and you can do black white. It is back bordered, it looks like, and again, Kay knows what she's doing. Like, she's been doing this a lot longer than I have. But yeah, like you can see, it looks like it's woven on purpose because both edges are finished, not just like a seam edge. Like, it looks so nice. Yeah, so that's a great place for reproduction bonnet veils. That actually almost might be cheaper than buying the fabric and such. But yeah, that's veils. So let's go ahead and look at some originals. I have to figure out what box they're in, but as soon as I figure that out, we're going to look at some. And I'm also going to show you what a mourning veil looks like so you can see the difference. And these are going to be in no in particular order. And you know what? There's a white one on top, so I shouldn't have put the white fabric down. Let's put down this and then we'll look at it. This is an 1840s veil. Not a wedding veil, it's just a regular old veil. Hopefully you can see the whole thing. A couple of men's, just kind of throughout. They appear to be period men's, just because most modern people don't bother. There are several other little holes throughout. They're very small, that are not mended, which makes me think that this is probably, or these are probably period men's. The ribbon is missing. It's just a little bit of a fold over. I'll show you up close in a minute. Let's get some measurements for you. But I would date this solidly mid-1840s to early 1850s. "34" wide by about 26 inches long. I only have 2 white veils. The other one I used is my wedding veil, and I think it's in a different box, so we won't get to that one today. So there's the lace. Beautiful embroidery on it. It's just a plain cotton net. You can see how fine that is, how tiny. I haven't counted the holes per inch, but we're looking, just based on looking at it, it looks about 25 to maybe 32-ish, maybe. Let's pull over, look at the side. So the side is the same as the bottom edge. And then it's plain until we get to the top. And then this is just folded over bobbinet or net. And it's very hard to see, but there are very tiny little whip stitches that are holding this on together. About every other, maybe every 2 or 3 holes in the bobbinet, there's a stitch. It is folded over twice. You can see where it's a little bit thicker in areas. That would be the raw edge turn knitter. So there are no raw edges. Put white fabric down so hopefully you can see a little bit better. I lied, I do have my wedding veil in here. It's still attached to a band at the top. I have it in here. I'll probably take it out fairly soon. I need it for an event very soon. So this is not original, obviously. This is what I did. When I use originals, which I almost never wear originals, this is probably one of 2 originals I have ever worn. My personal goal is, if I do anything to an original, it has to be easily taken back to its original state with no damage to the original. That is my qualifications. But let's see, this one is about 1830, mid-1830s. It is about 33.5 inches long. And I just now realized that it's white on white and y'all can't see anything. My apologies. I didn't realize this one was in this box. There we go. Alright, let's see on the bottom width. It's a rectangle, so the top width's going to be the same as the bottom width. It is 37 inches wide, so it's a little bit wider than it is long, just by a few inches. I'll pick it up and show it to you a little closer. This one is also folded over. There's a little bit of an edge there. Don't know if you can really see that. And here is the edge. Beautifully done. Beautifully worked. This one doesn't have quite as fine bobbinet as the last one, but it's still very fine. And we have the design. I'm trying to show it a little bit better. And there's a more substantial design on the bottom than on the sides. It has like little wheat shafts. These look like sunflowers to me. Almost little daisies. And then throughout the bobbinet we have these little flowers. Kind of just spotted throughout. Little dots. Beautifully done veil. I think any lace work, any type of network, lace work, whatever, is just gorgeous. I'm a huge fan of netting. Alright, now let's maybe get to some black ones. Here's one. Looks like it's later 1830s. maybe very early 1840s. And this one also is just turned under at the top. It is 35 and a little bit inches long, and width, it is 40. You can see again just how, so here's the top edge. Here. So there's the top edge here. You see where it's turned under. And then here is the side. And here's the little bits that are kind of just throughout the whole veil. And here's the bottom, the very bottom. You know, it might be easier if I take the camera out and just show you close-ups from here. All right, let's look at close-ups from here. So there's the side. Let's get a good, there's a good bottom section. And then we have these almost paisley looking things for several inches before it gets to like the main body. Lace is always fascinating to me because of course you have the parts that are, you know, empty, and you have parts that are filled in, the ones that are partially filled in, that are filled in a design. The pattern itself is so dependent on so many things and there's so much detail within it. Okay, this is one of my 1860s veils. This one's going to be hard. It has elastic in it, so beginning in the 1860s really, you can start having elastic in your veils instead of a ribbon. So this is a half moon veil, and this all is woven on purpose. You can see like the little berry looking things. And it looks like there is lace laid over top, but it is all woven on purpose. There's like no gathering in here to make it take this curve. This is all netted on purpose for a veil. And the elastic has broken off in several pieces. It's not in the most fantastic of condition, but given how old it is, that makes a lot of sense. Pretty big hole over here that hasn't been mended, but also, you know, if it happened not in the period, it wouldn't be mended because I see how it's gathered in at the top with that elastic. It is approximately 16 inches long, and at its widest, it is 24 inches long, or wide. And then this top edge has what is essentially a, we call it a beading now, on top, and that's how you put the ribbon or the elastic in there. This one, of course, is the elastic. Little thread elastic. But you can see over here is just without the elastic. It's just a little beading, which you can still buy today. And there's a little section without the design. That would be over the bonnet brim, so it doesn't matter if the design is in there. Because the bonnet's going to very well hide that, and any trimmings on the bonnet will hide that as well. This is another one that is 1830s likely. Can't even fit it all in the frame. It could be early. I think this is my earliest veil. Whether it dates to, it probably dates to the 1820s, maybe the early 1830s. About 42 inches long. And here's the design. Beautifully done. The very bottom edge. Let's see if we can get that little bit on that white. So you can actually see. There's that bottom edge. Here's the side. This one has a little bit of a top design to it. It's very fancy. But you see that little beading in there. It's a very narrow beading, but it is there to put a ribbon through. This one also has no ribbon. I have very few veils with their ribbons still attached. I may only have one or two. I've also sold a couple veils, so I don't remember which ones I kept. Here's another early 1840s. This one was originally black. It's just a little bit more brown now. Black dye didn't stay very well. But yeah, pretty little flowers. I love the 1815 to like 1845 veils. Clearly I have a problem. Flat section, 42.5 wide. The very bottom point, it is 35 inches long. There are the little flowers. So cute. Here's a big motif. Kind of get it to where you can see most of the motif in the frame. It's quite a large motif. Here's some close-ups. Here's the bottom edge. And the side. I feel like I'm in shadow there. Hopefully you can see that. No ribbon on this one, but there is, instead of just having it turned under, there's the beading. Very beautifully done. And it's fairly small. This one is 1840s and it still has its ribbon in it. So this is 1840s to like mid 1850s. Well, early 1850s. And let's measure. So length, about 27 inches. Width, 42. But here are the flowers, little close-ups. Here's the motif, very solid. And then there's two rows, so there's like this little scrolly row, and then there's the bottom. And the side, it's just a smaller version of the bottom. But there's the motifs. And the bottom edge. And this is a fairly big ribbon. It's about 3/8 of an inch. Let's see if I can get to focus. There we go. And it's just put in to this little casing. But there's the end of it. Get it to focus again. There we go. And it's just the color of the veil itself. This is again quite a wide one. I've seen them 1/8 inch. I've seen 1/4 inch. This is the widest type I've seen. Then one more veil to show you. It's attached to a bonnet. This is a mourning veil. This is from the 1880s. So there's the whole bonnet. I'm actually holding it upside down. It goes this way and would flop back. So you can see it's very plain. That's just the crepe texture. It's like some of this is wrinkles, but there's a texture to the crepe itself. There's a very nice plain hem on the side. No decoration, no fanciness. This is what a mourning veil would look like. And I'll put it next to one of the bonnet veils so you can see the difference. Like clearly this gives you a little bit more coverage, a little bit more privacy than the net does. It's still very fine. It is still see-through because obviously when you're wearing it you still need to be able to see. But you can see the difference. So this is the crepe. This is the mourning veil. And then there's the bobbinet regular bonnet veil. There's a side hem. This is actually decorated entirely with crepe. So it's really hard to tell like where the veil itself starts, but it's all kind of just gathered up at the very top of the bonnet. That's just 1880s stuff. And then big old crepe rose. That's the decoration, but it would fall over the face as well. As kind of like a covering. So that's my veil collection. Or at least what's left of it. Okay, we're in the guest room. I thought I would show you some of my reproduction bonnets with veils and talk about how I attach them and all that. So this is a bonnet by Anna Ward and Bowersmith. It is a open work straw bonnet. I am so glad I got this from her before she stopped doing them because I love open work straw. This is like the most amazing thing to wear in summer. And then I don't have a very pretty veil on it right now. This is like a dark green. This is silk gauze, so you can see how thin it is. And they are pinned in. I can get it to focus on there. There it is. So there's a little pin here. I have excess ribbon just kind of wrapped around as many times as I can. I don't know if that's period or not, but that's how I deal with it. And then there is there's the hem. And this one would probably use another pin like right here. But this is one of those I keep saying I'm going to retrim, because I actually don't like the way it looks right now. And it needs a better, prettier veil. But, oops. I don't have my period hair, so this is not going to work fantastic, but there it is. That should stay on. You see the like graceful disarray when it's over. It'd be a lot more fun if I was in period clothes, but we're going to do like different varieties of veil. And then you just toss it back just like that. So that's like an early 1850s bonnet and veil. This is a bonnet I made. Same type of thing, it needs a pretty veil as well. This one actually has some ribbon on it. So I love this bonnet. I did this on the channel and I am so proud of it. It's like the nicest bonnet I've ever made. But here is the ribbon. This is a very dark green as well. It is not very pretty, but it works. So I'm just going to toss this back. It's attached the same way and in the same places. This one I did attach up here as well. This is what an entomology pin looks like. And this is what the head of an entomology pin looks like. You see they're very fine, very thin. They are super, super pointy. Like, this thing would hurt. I forgot that I had the right kind of pin in here. Ideally, it would be tight, so tight across here that it wouldn't need a third pin, but this is what I have it right now, so that's what we're going to leave it as. And then I'll put it on. Again, my hair is not in the right position. There's my bonnet stay. There we go. But yeah, so veil over top with my little bit of my ribbon. Again, you can also have the ribbon and like sandwich the raw edge of the hem in there, and that could be your hem as well. So there's just all the way around. And then when tossed back. This is a graceful disarray. This is what I mean by graceful disarray. Or we can toss it all the way back. So this one is later 18th or mid 1850s, I believe. This is my favorite bonnet. The one from Anna is my second favorite bonnet. This is my favorite bonnet. It was done by Danielle, and I am missing a pin and something has gone loose with my ribbon. It does need another pin though, just because of the shape of this particular one. So to pin it, what I do is I kind of tighten the string. I put my pin right in the ribbon. So it's going in the ribbon. I poke it back out. And there's always like this extra bit of string, and what I do, and I have no idea if this is right or not, I do like a figure 8 as many times as I can, and ideally it hides the point of the pin so it doesn't poke anything, and then it gets rid of the excess as well. This is early 1860s. And then this is like a little demi ball. So this is the circular kind. The ones we've seen before have been rectangular. This is what a circular veil looks like. And tossed all the way back. This is what you'll see this a lot in pictures and such. So just like that. And this one was one I made, so this is the dotted net, the point de espire, whatever we call that. And then there is a little bit of, this is just black cotton lace at the bottom. And then it has the, this is one I made. This is some beading with an edge. So it's in addition to just the beading, there's also the lace edge as well. So just the beading is correct, and then beading with the lace edge is correct. Okay, my bonnet got squished, but this is my mourning veil. This is late 1860s. This is a very much darker, this is silk crepe. This is modern silk crepe. You can see how different it is from the period stuff. You should still be able to see me, whereas you can't in this. I can still see out. This is it over. I need to fix my bonnet. It is sadly squished and then tossed all the way back. This is a little bit heavier to do. Like, it's hard to keep this on when this is tossed all the way back. But you can't do that. Let's see if I can show you. You can see through this. So this is what it looks like when you're wearing it. You can still see my arm pretty well, but this is what it looks like. And then neither of my hats have veils. This is the one I was telling you about that I made from the straw one. This is what I did. So these are the little beads. There's little bee ones, and then there's the flower ones. And they're beautifully done. They're just, it's really heavy. And so when you wear it, it is quite heavy. But here is my very thin and fine silk ribbon. There is, oh, it's coming apart. I need to fix the hole. But then there's the beading. You can see the point of spirit, or spire, however you pronounce that. And there's, I think, the exact same edging I used on the other one. But this is really heavy, and whenever it falls, it just falls. There's no gracefulness. And when you toss it back, it's quite heavy. Straw would be a much better way of doing this. So I don't use this one anymore. I really need to take off all that work that I did by hand, because then I could use this as a functioning hat veil the way it is. Yeah, let's see. I think my other bonnet veils, the 1830s ones, are in the other room. I will go traverse the landmine and go find those. Alright, found my riding hat. So this is what I was talking about with the ribbon on either end. Like, it's just a 2-inch bit of ribbon. It's a 2-inch bit of ribbon that has been folded in half. So I have an inch on either side, and that just gives it a little bit of weight. This one fits in the back. Just like that. It flutters while you're riding. I mean, it does kind of fit over here as well. And this would be good to keep dust out of the face and that sort of thing, but yeah. That's that veil. Then a couple years ago, my 1820 bonnet got really squished, and I haven't sat down and fixed it yet. So we're gonna ignore the squishy bonnet. And it fits. This is one of Danielle's patterns. I made the bonnet, but it is one of Danielle's patterns. So this is actually it's not original, it's just a vintage patterned veiling. And I thought it was perfect for this. Oh, there's a rip in it. I need to fix that. But yeah, this is my 1820s veil, Reproduction. I just hemmed all the edges. Ideally, of course, it would have like a nice hem. And eventually it will. I'm going to find a very nice black lace that looks period. I'm going to put it, kind of applique it onto the bottom. And that'll give me that look as well. But this just is beautiful. Like, it's very reminiscent of the period ones that we saw. And of course, on this time period, we would generally toss it to one side, and my hair is not going to keep it in place. It's going to go like that. But generally, you'd have hair to kind of keep this in place. But this is what it would look like to the side. And it's just easier because you have so much here and then back here. Getting this whole big thing back is a little bit hard, and it's not very graceful. So pulling it off to one side is a little bit easier. Okay, I think that's all the veils. Before we go, I want to show you some fabrics that can be used. So this is that dotted net. This is a bit of the ivory that can be used. Okay, I have it in black as well. Again, I'm very, very glad that I bought it. I have at least a yard here. This will give me a good 3 to 4 veils, or like 2 veils and a cap or something. But this is what it looks like. Very nice, light, fluffy. Should have brought my silk gauze too. This is going to make a nice veil. This is vintage. And it's just a little bit of fabric, and it has little designs on it. This is like perfect. This, I can make a single 1840s veil out of this, which is likely what I'm going to do without cutting it. I'm just going to need to find some nice, something to go on the bottom and the sides. So that'll be a project. I haven't found the lace to go with this yet. But eventually we are going to do some veil projects. I have a couple of hats that need veils. I have at least one 1850s bonnet that doesn't have a veil. I have an 1860s bonnet that doesn't have any, I just have the veil cut. I haven't done the lace on the bottom. And then I don't think I have an 1830s veil. I think I only have the 1820s one. So those are any projects down the road, but again, I have to get lace to be able to do that. I have some of the lace. I haven't come across that box yet, which is why we're not going to do it today. Otherwise, we totally would. But yeah, these are some of the fabrics that make really good veils. And so that is going to be about it. If you've enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe to the channel, click that little bell notification so you're notified anytime I upload a new video. And as always, have a fantastic week, and I'll see you back here in the next video.